Shainaz and Joanne. Thanks everyone for joining us. And I want to say we're still very impromptu in-house sharing approach. So I'm going to post the link to the slides again. And if you feel you'd like to share any AI tool, we're going to start off with Jenny. But I think as Jenny's presenting, maybe you think of something that you'd like to share, and yeah, feel free to add it to our slide deck, and then we'll go in the order of the names and the tools on the slides. Okay, I was popping that in there. Okay. Whoops. So yeah, these are various interactive sessions, and we're hoping for colleagues to share, your most useful free AI tool. And it's very informal. You can just talk a little bit about the tool and about what you've used it for, how you found it useful, perhaps give other, fellow educators some ideas. Yeah, and I know, Jenny, that you've got limited time with us today. So I think I'm going to hand over to Jenny, but if colleagues have, or you want to volunteer to share, please add your name and the name of the tool and the link to this Google slide. I see that Mark has just joined us, so I'm going to just repost this message so Mark can see it. Okay, and over to you, Jenny.
Thank you. So it's afternoon here in the UK. So good afternoon. My time is limited by the attention spans of my children, 2 of whom are in the room with me. And we've been sent up because my eldest one is doing something else on the screen downstairs. So we'll see how this all goes. But I'm going to show you guys Goblin tools. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Lost it. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen and take you through them. One of the things I like about these tools, just to start out and say, is that it's a real suite of things. So there's like a lot of options, and you can, in a different way than like having OpenAI's ChatGPT, it's a thing that's a tab that's always open in your browser. I find having these tools always open in my browser is a good middle ground for me. In terms of the actual ways I'd want to use AI. So the story behind Goblin tools is that they were found or heard about by a friend of mine who works around inclusive practice. And the person who's putting them together has promised, so far so good, that they're always going to be free. They're funded by a very, very low cost app for Apple and Android. That's actually quite handy, where you can take all these tools and use them on your phone, tablet, or various other devices. But the tools themselves on the goblin.tools webpage are going to always be free. They're also specifically designed to address tasks that those who are neurodivergent might struggle with or find a barrier. So there's things around tone, there's things around, I'll show you the magic to do, and then there's things around sort of like different ways to approach answering questions, different ways to approach communication with others. And what I think is very interesting is I have a student team, so I have a group of 21 students who work for me part-time during the academic year. And as you can imagine, they're quite a diverse group. They come from lots of different sort of backgrounds and experiences, and they also have all started using this tool in very, very different ways. So some of them are using it as a translation aid, those who are using English as an additional language. Some of them are using it to help them do the breakdown of the to-do that I'm about to show you. And then quite a few of them are using it to translate emails in their own language, so most of them in English, but that they feel aren't the right tone. So they're really using it to like explore language in a way that is pretty fascinating to watch, especially for someone who who's a background in that. So what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and show you the tool. The nice thing about the Magic To Do is a couple of things. First of all, it leaves the agency to you to the level of spiciness, the level of breaking down that you need. And what I'll do is I'll demonstrate to you. It starts you off at the middle level, but let's say that you really are feeling quite overwhelmed by a big project and you want a lot of help breaking it down into something. So I have to write up a budget proposal for a university belonging initiative. And that is just something I've been putting off and putting off and putting off because I know what I need to do, or I know what the output needs to be, but getting started is really difficult for me. So I'd like a lot of help. And the nice thing about this is it gives you a bit of time. It lets you think, okay, do I want actual subtasks? Do I want it to generate the subtasks for me? Do I want it to estimate time and all sorts of things? So if you go down to estimate, it says it might take me about 2 hours. And right away, one of the things that I think is really interesting is that actually that doesn't feel so bad. So this big amorphous project that I was thinking of, like that was going to take me forever, having something else decide that actually it's not going to take me so long is a really good feeling. Okay, so it's going to take me about 2 hours, but I don't know how to break it down. So what you can do is you go to the breakdown item and it has a little thing. So this connects to the 3.5, so the open AI version. So it's going to take a little minute depending on how many people are using it and how it's doing. And then eventually what it will do is break it down into a series of subtasks. Sometimes, because it is a free tool, here it is, you will need to come back and back and back. Now, people like me who enjoy ticking things off, like the super spicy level, right? First of all, I like being like, ooh, I've already done this. I'm halfway there, right? So I don't mind having a lot of to-do lists from the beginning. But if you're not that kind of person, you can lower your spiciness level and it will just give you much bigger chunks. And it's nice to play with depending on what it is you're trying to break down, how prepared you are for something. So I find that the more detailed breakdown is really useful depending on how ready I feel to do something and other things like that. So the nice thing about the other nice things about Magic To Do List is very simple to export into your own favorite task management tool, or I use Obsidian just even into a text-based program. It's really easy to sort of go through and think about different things, and then you can go and ask it to break down further individual tasks, so you can really get it going and going and going and going. And for those of us like myself, who I think I can get overly wound up about this whole process of figuring out a plan, having something generate the plan for me and then me having to iterate it takes away some of that pressure. One of the things I've also noticed that our students are doing a lot with it is if they're unsure what the first step would be, they'll put something in and then be like, oh, maybe not, no. And then they'll slightly reframe what they're actually trying to accomplish. And what that seems to do is help them iterate what their actual goal is. So I knew in this case what I have to do for my output, but for a student who's approaching an assessment, for example, where they're just writing up something on a topic, I've watched them kind of iterate their topic over and over in here because the way the task is broken down actually doesn't align with what it is they want to do. So that's the Magic To Do. The other thing that's quite fun are all of these other elements that are up at the top. So you have a formalizer, the judge, the estimator, the compiler, and the chef. And these are all different things. So the chef actually will create a recipe from ingredients. So those of us who stare into our fridge in despair and don't know what to do with any of the things there, you can type in like pasta, cheese, and 2 tomatoes, and it will help you come up with something. And for those of us who otherwise find ourselves eating exactly the same meal 5 days in a row, it can be a really nice way to sort of reinvent what it is you're doing. So I had it invent like different forms of cheese on toast for me one week. But one of the things that I actually use quite a bit, one of the things I actually use quite a bit is this formalizer. So I have a tendency to cuss. I also can get like very wound up about certain things and not be sure how to phrase them. I'm not from the UK, I live in the UK, and there's a level of expectation of formality and hierarchies in some of the conversations and communications that I don't always grasp immediately. So if there was something, for example, that I have a huge concern over your approach, I think it's totally wrong, which is not probably something I would send, but it's definitely something I would think, and then be unsure what to say. You can hit convert for more professional, and it'll have a little thing, and it now says, I would like to express a significant concern regarding your approach as I disagree with it completely. So that's not only a little bit moderated, but it's quite helpful. And then actually, if I have to email someone who, maybe I don't want them to really hear that snipiness at all, I can change it to one spicy pepper, and I have a significant concern regarding your approach as I believe it may not align with the best course of action, which actually is a very, very appropriate, completely acceptable way to be like, you're wrong. in sort of business communications. And again, what I've seen with our students, and not just me, is that they're really much more comfortable emailing their lecturers using this, because they're aware that there are expectations, but they're not sure about them. And I think it also helps smooth the way where, if some people would feel you're being too blunt or that you're being a bit brusque, it can be a really helpful way to kind of smooth your language. So that's the Goblin tools. I can recommend both the app and the webpage. It's genuinely open constantly across everywhere that everyone's working. We also circulated it around our two neurodivergent networks. We have one for staff and one for students, and they are both like just completely thrilled with it. I think especially the to-do list for some of us, and the chef has been sort of a lifesaver. But yeah, that's Goblin tools. Does anyone have any questions about it? I'll stop sharing.
You have to register for it?
Nope, all free, totally open, doesn't know who you are. As far as I can tell, it has no tracking at all. So yeah, it's of all the tools out there, is the one I'm incredibly comfortable asking about. It does use an API with OpenAI, so at some point your stuff is probably there helping them out. But again, we do our normal recommendations around like, don't put personal information in there, and that kind of thing. Even if you're to-do listing, be updating your some sort of social security, like please don't enter your actual number into the tool itself, that kind of thing. But it's a nice approach, and I think for students who would find even the natural language input of something like ChatGPT a little overwhelming, it's very stripped back, isn't it? Each thing has a purpose. You use it for that purpose. It's done a lot of the work in the background to make sure that the prompts are saying, make this more formal at this level of spiciness, that kind of thing. So you don't have to struggle through that at all. And it's updated so far. It's been updated quite regularly. So every time ChatGPT introduced a new sort of iteration of its tools, the tools on Goblin tools were also being updated with further capabilities and capacity and things like that. Yeah, and the phone app is 99 cents. It's 99p in the UK.
Wow. And I must say, Jenny, when you first sent the link to me, yeah, I just wasn't quite sure of the kind of use of it. And it like didn't have that it wasn't like explicit, but now that you've shown how one uses it, is definitely a lot more clear, and I can see a lot of potential. So thank you. Very excited.
I think it was built specifically to support people who struggle with these tasks. So I think it's an interesting perspective, because a lot of the conversation around things like ChatGPT has touched on accessibility and inclusivity, but the tool itself isn't all that inclusive or accessible. So I think it's interesting watching someone layer over what they need out of the tools in order to make it sort of a sufficient support for a very specific group. And I think the other thing that's so interesting is we showed it to our student team just so they would know and could recommend it to others. But the sheer uptake among them has been really revelatory for us as well. And it's just really useful. It's a nice little tool. And then Danielle was saying maybe the formalizer would be helpful for writing feedback for academic manuscripts. Yes, a reviewer too could often use the formalizer when they're reading our papers, couldn't it? I think too, it's a bit like being able to iterate without having to spend too much time re-editing. Things where you're like, it's not worth me spending all this time getting it perfect. It helps you just smooth it over that little bit, so it's not so broken up, or it says better what you meant to say. But not in every case, you might not have had the time or capacity to do that work yourself. And to me, I'm more comfortable with this is Mordecai. Hello, Mordecai. I'm more comfortable with that kind of use of these tools. I feel like that's a good place to at least start with exploring what they can do. Making things a bit better for everyone.
Yeah, awesome. And I think one thing I've been using AI tools a lot for, especially ChatGPT, and I imagine I could use this as well, would be to write learning outcomes. So as a starter, you're designing a new course or a training program, and how can you get started? And I think that starting point, and I think Goblin Tools gives that as well. A really good, just a place to start. Any more questions for Jenny about Goblin tools? Okay, I don't think we've got any more questions for you, Jenny, and I realize that your time is a bit of a challenge. So thank you very much for coming on and still sharing with us. We really appreciate it. I think we're going to have a lot of folks using Goblin tools. So thank you very much. All right, and then we've got Heather is going to share a fun one with us. Let's see if Heather's on. Okay, Heather, can I hand over to you?
Sure. Okay, yes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Typatone. This is a pretty simple tool to use. And it's nice if you have a short text and you want to have, you can type it into this app and it makes like a little melody out of it, right? So it's something very simple, more of a fun kind of thing. And let me share both my sound and my screen. Yeah. So for example, here is a short 6-word story that I wrote last December. Solitary happy walks, embracing breeze. And I can use this little app. I can just simply type it in. I forgot a word. And then it makes a little melody out of it, as you hear. And you can change, yeah. And you can change using a different filter here. Or this one. I'm just going to turn off the sound there for a moment. And when I used this tool before, you could share it using this little arrow here, but it doesn't seem to be working today for some reason. I don't know. It's just not working at all. Yeah, but that's just a nice little tool to, put music to your text.
Thank you, Heather. Looks like fun. Yes, Meg agrees. Fun tool. And I think my nephew will, really enjoy that. He likes music, but doesn't like to write and read. And I think that would motivate him a little bit.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat there, the link to it. One thing that I did with my students, I teach business students and they create their own little companies. And so for one segment, they created a little advertisement for their company and I invited them to use this, for a slogan. So that's one way you could use it. But I'm sure there are other equally creative things you could do with students. Have them, for example, if they're reading a text, have them summarize the text maybe in a sentence and see how that sounds. Can they use one of the filters to, kind of make the sound match the text? I don't know.
Oh, any questions for Heather about Typatone? Maybe you have a creative use for this tool in mind? Yeah, cool. Perhaps we can have colleagues share in the chat. Okay, Danielle says maybe it's useful in poetry. Jenny says we always like creating noisy stories here, so love the option to also make music. Ah,
Well, I have another tool that's very similar. It's a percussion one, so I could give you the link to that if you'd
Oh.
like. Or hang on a second, I have to find it. Let's see.
and while Heather's finding that tool, if there's anyone who wants to volunteer to chat about a AI tool you find useful, feel free to let us know. You can either just add your name to the slides, or you can just let us know in the chat. Okay, cool. I'm going to add that to our slide deck, Heather.
Mhm. And this one uses the same principle. You just type something in and it has uses different drums and symbols and whatnot. It's also a very fun tool to play around with text and trying to match the sounds to your text or vice versa.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Heather. And I think while we're waiting for folks to volunteer, I think I'll go ahead and just share one that I found like literally today. But I thought, even though I haven't played with it as much, I think it could still be useful for folks, especially when you're kind of pressed for time. It's called Consensus, consensus.app. Let me just share my screen. And I've actually asked it a question already. And how it works is you ask a question. So at the top, I've got, do blended learning approaches improve learning for university students? All right. And over here, so when you first get the results, they're in the form of individual papers. And you can go and look at these papers and see what parts that they're pulling from it. And you can see the journal it's from, Journal of E-Learning and Higher Education. You can see the authors, the year. So here, this one, blended learning approach leads to higher student achievement, improves student engagement, contributing fruitful findings to the literature of blended learning. But if you click on synthesize, so I'm going in using the free version. It's kind of the first time you try it out, it's free. And here it is in beta mode, so they do signal that, it might not be 100% accurate, but they do give you results from real academic articles, which I think is useful because we know that AI tools are infamous for hallucinating. So what I quite like when you click on, this little slider for synthesize, you can see, they've analyzed top, 10 papers, and it says these studies suggest that blended learning approaches enhance students' learning experiences, improving learning outcomes and engagement, and increase academic performance for university students. But you can go into the articles and kind of get a better sense of some of the nuances. But out of the papers that they analyzed, they have a consensus meter. And how many have said yes, how many say possibly. So that's quite useful. And then you get some icons which will tell you, it says this one is a rigorous journal. You can click on the eye for more information. So it's ranked in the top 50% of journals measured by size score. Tells me a little bit more about that. Whether it was a random control trial, that also comes up as one. I'm not really that fond of very experimental research and control groups, but hey, maybe some people are. If there's a meta-analysis, so it gives you some insight on what method was used. And here, highly cited from a paper in the top 5% of the most cited papers in our database. And here, whether, again, highly cited. Some of these, you can look at the journal and think, whether that is really something you would cite or agree with. I suppose you'd also look at the date, but it's just useful as kind of answering a question and getting some insight based on, real academic articles. And you can ask it, any question. And it's yes, no questions. I actually have an article that it was just a short one that explains it quite well. I'm going to share it here. But they say, it's used for, ask yes or no questions, find out the relationship between concepts and the effects of a concept, those kind of things. So if you have those kinds of questions in mind, then it might be useful. It's, I think, possibly useful for students who are starting out and researching a topic and finding some literature. It could be useful for that. Or, if you're doing a workshop and someone asked you, well, what is the research on this? You could pull out this tool. Because I don't know if you're like me, or sometimes you get your workshops and things just disappear from your mind. Or you want to point to something else that can evidence what you're saying. All right, any questions about this tool? See the chat. Yeah, sort of like Elicit. You could definitely use it, or Connected Papers, but I think Elicit will probably give you a lot more, depending on how you design your prompt, of course. So as I've said, I've just started like playing with it. I'm not a total expert of all the ins and outs. I'm not sure if it, if these are all closed closed access articles and it's going on the abstract, or if these are all open research articles. So I haven't kind of explored that yet. Yeah, any questions? Okay, I'm going to stop my share, go to my slides and see if we've got any volunteers. Christina has volunteered Scribble Diffusion. That sounds interesting. Thank you, Christina.
Sure,
Over to you.
it's just a fun one. I was trying to play with something else this morning and it wasn't working, so we'll just do this one. So it's a AI picture generator, but you can design more or less what goes into the picture. Okay, sorry, I hit the wrong button. So first I'm just going to put the link in the chat. And then I can share my screen. So, okay, so actually when you first go to the page, it gives you a draft drawing, a photo of a cat, and you can sort of see what it does. But what I did was just draw something. This is a terrible drawing of a cat looking out a window. And then you hit, this is what I got at first. So basically what it does is it takes, the approximate drawing that you scribbled, and turns it into something that looks a bit better than what you scribbled. So I'm going to change this to a painting of a cat looking out a window, and I'm going to make it a tabby cat, and we'll see what it does. It's still a terrible drawing. Yeah, it's not too bad. The cat looks a little strange. Just like any AI image generator, it's going to do some strange stuff. But what I like about it is that instead of just, with a lot of these tools, you describe what you want it to do, and then you just use a bunch more words to sort of get it to put things in the right place. Well, here you can kind of sketch it out, right? So I actually want the window over here and the cat over here. I mean, you can probably do a better job with your cat than I did, but that's not too bad. It's just got a very strange one of those short paws. So I did another one, painting of a coffee mug and a succulent on a desk with a window in the background to the outside, because at first I just had a window in the background, and you can see it has, I don't know what that is in the background, but that is not a window. It looks like wood. So I was like, okay, maybe it needs to know that that's actually a window in the background to the outside. And then that one's a bit better, although it's got a handle on the pot for some reason. And what I like about this is you can just do a really sketchy, messy drawing, and it will actually come up with something that's kind of pretty good, right? So for things like presentations or, documents where you want it to, these are not very professional or anything, but you want it to have things in a certain place, and you want the structure of the picture to be one way or another, this will let you do that. So yeah, that was just a quick thing. Is it similar to Quick Draw? Yes, sir. I actually don't know Quick Draw, so maybe. Yes, it is for free. Scribble Diffusion is the name of the thing that I'm showing right now. Yeah, so that's it. That's very short. And maybe Esther, you can say a bit more about Quick Draw. Don't know that one, or Mark or somebody.
So basically what Quick Draw allows you to just in 30 seconds challenge yourself by drawing something, and it will just guess what you did. I can't share because I'm not really familiar with the visual stuff. But actually I used it in a class. And it was fun for students to try to learn about the function of AI and how AI can predict things and how it can use its pre-trained data to generate something or to guess something or to come up with an output. So this was kind of the outcome from using Quick Draw in our class, but maybe someone might use it as a kind of a brainstorm or something. Like they can like draw something and then it can guess something else and they can be inspired. This is Quick Draw. If someone would like to jump in and share, that would be cool.
Thank you, Yasser, and thank you very much, Christina, for sharing Scribbled Diffusion with us. Cool. Mark has shared the link to Quick Draw, so folks can play around with that. I see Laura has joined us, and Sumud. So as I started the session, I said, we're having a very informal sharing session, and if anybody would like to share a AI tool you find useful, feel free to volunteer. You can volunteer in the chat, or add your name and the tool to our Google Slides. I can share that link again.
So I'm gonna speak about something, Nicola, that's not possible to be shared because it's on, it's an app. This app called Cambly, that is the app that ESL students can use it to improve their speaking skills in English language and so on and so forth by speaking to a native and all they have an AI speaking partner that you can come and just use it to speak with, and then it will suggest alternatives for what you say that might sound like native speakers. Like when you say, how are you doing? It will come up with a list of alternatives similar to how are you doing? Like, how have you been up to? How was life? Like, I think it's all they say it's based on GPT-4 technology and other technologies that they blended together. And I've kind of played with it like a week ago, and it was fine. It was fine for me as a kind of similar to what Jenny was saying, the formalizer that, okay, I don't know how this works when it comes to etiquette and how native people do say this in a kind of a smooth language. So playing with such a tool would like give the kind of it will not be 100% accurate, but it will just give a hint of what things work and how things are saying. And I kind of you kind of like choose the conversation theme, and I kind of challenged it about, okay, I know all this and this and this. I know this stuff. It told me like, okay, I'm glad you knew this stuff. So let's move it forward to another advanced level. And I know that all of this is like a trained data set, but it's always good that it doesn't quit the conversation, especially with second language like users, because second, like when the conversation is quitted with second language users, they get very stuck, they get very despair, because they feel like, okay, I'm not going to be able to continue the conversation, it's very difficult to keep the conversation going. And by speaking to the AI, I think they kind of get, okay, I get the confidence now with the AI. So tomorrow, why don't I try with the human beings, with the individuals themselves? So that was a cool part. I also haven't subscribed to the Cambly packages, so it was for free to try this AI based tech.
Thank you, Yasser. It's is it Cambly, Cambly? Okay, cool. Thank you. Just wanted to check that I've got the right one for our Google Slides where I'm collecting these tools so folks can try it out. Is it just English, or are there other languages?
No, it's just English. As far as I know, I haven't tried it with Arabic. I haven't tried it with anything, because the app is designed for second language learners. So like the English as a second language learning. So I don't think that will work with other languages, because they are not designing it for like conversation per se, but they're designing for ESL students.
Ah, I see. Any other questions for Yasser about Cambly?
Sorry, Nicola?
I'm just asking if anyone has any more questions for you about
Yeah,
it.
okay. So sorry, I was cut, like the network was cutting, sorry.
No worries. Okay, I don't see any questions. Perhaps if folks can think of something, or if you do have one that comes up for you, you can put it in the chat. Okay, Laura's shared she can't speak or turn on camera in a busy, noisy room. And you shared an image you created. Cool. Mark, do you have any AI tools you'd like to share with us? Or anyone else? Oh, the best ones have been shared. Oh, glad we're sharing some good ones. Danielle, Meg. Joanne. Shahinaz, Sumud. And you don't have to be an expert user. I literally found consensus today. And I thought, you know, I can see the potential. Thought I'd just share about it anyway. Ah, Gamma app. Jenny, I know you're super busy, but if you could show us, that would be cool.
So I just opened it up. This is like semi-free in that they give you a bank of whatever's, I think they call them coins or credits, that you can use to access the AI section of their tool. And then I assume you have to purchase them. I'm quite miserly with apparently imaginary credits and have not used them all up yet. But I'll share my screen and show you all what it is. I did use it to create my my presentation for MyFest. So we went through it, and one thing we discovered is its presentation on screen, like as a presentation, isn't as cool, but it's basically a presentation building app, or tool, I suppose it is. So this is the homepage for it. It's just gamma.app. It can do two things. I was first drawn to it because I can only make slides in PowerPoint that are in like extremely straight lines. I can't do, some people do absolutely beautiful things, like, you know, things that look like they kind of have a bit of movement, or, you know, you can do a really like helpfully aligned mind map. I can I can divide things into columns, and like that's all I can do. If I start messing about with PowerPoint too much, it all gets like slightly askew to the point where people like friends of mine who've got like quite good eyes for kerning and things just can't look at what I've created because it's all just slightly off. So I was originally drawn to this because it makes quite nice looking slides without people like me being able to just completely mess them up. So what you can do is you can decide whether to create a new one with AI or just from the link. If you choose AI, it takes you to a whole section where you can generate, you can put in like a load, I think it's up to 2,000 words. It's quite a few words. So you can put in a lot of information to support it generating a topic, or you can import a bunch of docs and other slides like PowerPoint slides. And then what it will do is it will take what you've given it and it will build a slide deck for you. So I did that original one with where are we, this one on the TEF, so it's called Untitled. And I originally, I don't, if for those of you who are not completely immersed in UK higher education, the TEF is our teaching excellence framework, and about every 5 years we get marked on how well we deliver teaching theoretically. And so I had to take us through in the library with how it affects library staff, because libraries don't always intersect quite as explicitly with the TEF as my library does. And so what I did was I put in a bunch of prompts. So I put in things around what I needed to say. So I said I need to explain it. I had to talk about services, I talked about educational materials, and it developed a reasonable set of slides. It gave me a table that was much better aligned than anything I could have created. And it alternated colors in that very helpful way that I would have tried to do and would have failed at. You know, it varied the backgrounds and things. And this is mostly visual. I think the text-based bit is only as good as you would expect ChatGPT 3.5 to be. So it took quite a bit of refining. But what I did appreciate was it tried to guess from what I wanted to put on the slide what the format of the slide should be. And so one of the more interesting things was I went, oh, there's like, you could do a table here. So it was a really good way for me to actually explore different ways to put slides together and different ways to present the information in more of a data viz kind of thinking. And then it just, you know, we took you all the way through. I was able to use the presentation after, you know, some refining. And just like I said before with Goblin Tools, this is one of those things where I had to speak for half an hour or something. I could have spoken without slides. This was all just stuff I knew, but slides obviously make it more accessible for everyone. It's easier to share after and things like that. I didn't want to spend 4 hours on these slides, which is what it would have taken me to make anything that looked at all visually pleasing in any way. And so with this, I was able to kind of mock it up in 30 minutes, refine the text a little bit because I knew the subject really deeply, and then kind of move on. And I really appreciated that. So I think for me, it was less about generating the information and more about like, oh, I don't have to like try and line all the stuff up, which for some reason, or my fonts, why are my fonts not matching? Like all of that kind of stuff was just sort of taken care of. And I really, really do appreciate it. So it's not, free. And also it always yells at me because I don't like using Chrome. I always use Firefox. So it's not free, but it's got a reasonable amount of credits to test out. So you only use 20 or 30, I think, on every one. So you could do, a good 6 to 8 of these without needing to pay anything. And the more I use it, the more I keep thinking, well, it'd be kind of nice. Like, I'm sure PowerPoint will look at this and Microsoft will catch up and do something so that, they've got their little design studios up, don't they? But until they do, I kind of appreciated this because it's really, especially takes my information further side and goes, actually, this might be really useful in a table, which I would have put it in 2 columns and had too many dots or something. So I think that's really, really helpful when it comes to presenting your information. And it really does that thing that people keep saying AI will help you with, which is simplify the tasks you hate doing. And then Irene has asked about, you can add in existing slides. So yeah, you can. I've never tried to do that because again, my slides are always slightly horrific. But I know you can import them. This is also, I do a lot of my thinking with a child on my back. So I know you can import them, and it does sort of work with those. So I assume it sort of does its best to align everything together. And it's sort of free, as I said yesterday, where you start out with enough to certainly give it a good go, and think about that. But yeah, is there anyone who's got a question about it or anything like that? No, well, I'll stop sharing and also make it so you don't have to all watch the 4-year-old do her gymnastics practice.
Thank you so much, Jenny. We really appreciate it. And I see Danielle has asked, to Jenny's point about getting ideas for visual presentation, I wonder if there are AI tools that help with information design. Really good question. And I was wondering if we've got, maybe anyone has played around with some tools that can help with that. I did one, it was just a random one I found that generated a video. You say what topic you want, because I wanted to see what it actually designed, and it was so hideous. It was just terrible. Luckily I don't even remember the name, but it was like a very business-like person that walks into the screen and welcomes you, and then the end part of the video, she comes in again and says thank you, and now you've learned about this thing. Okay, any AI tools out there that help with information design? I'm sure you could actually prompt ChatGPT a little bit for that, but does anyone have any other ideas? I know the design part of PowerPoint, if you put on multiple pictures, there's actually kind of I don't know if it's AI, but it does this automated kind of like design suggestions for you, which is pretty cool.
I guess like the GPT-4 now has like this potential to design information with kind of good prompting, and especially you can now go and give it some documents. So when you give it some eye openers, it will start synthesizing new and developments, and that culminate in the whole design of information. I'm not so sure because I haven't accessed GPT-4 yet, but that's from what we're reading and from the Twitter threads that we're seeing. Yeah.
Oh, and I see Christina said she's been playing around with Tome, and Gamma looks a lot better. They do similar things, but she said, I think Gamma looks powerful. Maybe you want to show us Tome or share a bit about it, Christina?
Yeah, I just started playing with it this morning, and I don't have enough information. Like I can't totally figure it out. I mean, I can show you. Let me just see if I can sign in real quick, because I just signed out because I was like, I don't really know how to use this thing. So sure, if you want me to, I can show a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I think that's the one. So I've just signed in. So it, looks different when you first log in, but here are some things I just played around with. So you can have it create a slide deck. So you just click create. Excuse me. And then you can choose what you want it to create. So one option is create a page about, create a presentation about, document to presentations. So I guess you can upload a document and it will create a presentation based on it. Create an image, upload an image, search images, add video file, etc. So I'll just show you what I did earlier. I asked it to create a presentation about crafting writing assignments that challenge AI. That wasn't exactly the prompt. It was something about create a presentation about designing writing assignments that AI can't do, I think was the prompt, something like that. And and you could say how many slides you wanted. It just automatically did 6. And I said, sure. So the first slide is just a title. The second slide is an outline. And when you create, it does give you the outline. And I think you can readjust and reformat like what you want to come first. But then all the rest of the slides are just a lot of text with an AI generated image. So an introduction slide with a lot of text, limitations of AI in writing slide with a lot of text. So all the slides are like that. And so they're all the same format. Now, what you can do is you can add a tile. So I could add a table. Of course, it would just add a table, on top of the rest of the stuff, but I could delete the picture and use the table instead. So you can redesign, but what I liked about just a little bit from what I saw about Gamma was that you can sort of chat with it and tell it, add a table here, and it will just do it. Whereas with Tome, it looks like you have to kind of manually do all that stuff. But I wasn't pleased with the slides with like 10,000 words on each one. That just seems way too wordy. So, of course you can edit it, but it's not that exciting. So yeah, I haven't tried the rest of it really. I mean, I tried creating a page of guidelines for using generative AI in university curriculums. That, again, was not the prompt. And it provides you with multiple options for a page layout, and you can choose what option you want, and then it'll generate it generated guidelines like ensure ethical use, provide sufficient training, and encourage collaboration, etc. And again, I can add any elements that I want to. I can add Twitter, I can add an image, I can add a video, not any elements I want to, the ones that are available. And I guess you can just create a web page, I suppose, that you can share here. So I've just started playing with it. I don't really know a ton about it. And it may be more powerful than I know. But I'm going to try out Gamma. That looks cool.
Oh, thank you very much, Christina. And I see Daniela said the wordy stuff, often goes into notes, and then you might use the AI tool to summarize them or edit it yourself. So yeah, I often do that as well. Does anyone else have a cool AI tool that you find useful that you'd like to share with us? Or if you have a question for Christina about Tome. Okay, and I see we're 5 minutes to the hour. Just checking what our time was. But we have gone over before, but I think we said, yeah, I suppose depending on what Ah, Charty calculator. Oh, that does look good, Mark. Create bespoke chart designs. I'm going to add that to our Google Slides. And Irene, thank you very much for sharing the feedback, the little form. I think you're signaling that it's the end. We were on a roll.
No, it's for those who leave a little earlier. I did.
Oh, no problem. I'm just gonna. I'm just looking for the link for Charticulator. Not even sure if I'm saying that right. Oh, I'm glad you found it practical, Danielle. And please, if you have any more tools that you'd like to share, you can pop them in the chat or in our slides. Oh, thanks. We've done a lot of tools today. It's so great when we can crowdsource tools. Anna's just joined us, and Clarissa, welcome. And Karen.